Ranganathan. I'm a graduate student in University of Colorado Boulder. Today I'll be discussing about the customer role in agile development. This is the agenda of our topic today. We'll be having a brief introduction. We'll be checking what are all the roles played by the customer in an agile development. Also, we'll be looking over the advantages of a customer collaborating with the development team. So, many analysis proves that the customer involvement has led to the success of the project. Customer involvement alone does not lead to the project to success stage, as there are a number of factors around the user involvement which decides the success of the project. So customers frequent interaction with the development team and continuous feedback on the project helps the developers to navigate in the right path. So for this project, I conducted a survey among the people who are working as project managers in multinational companies. So I came to a conclusion after interviewing them and researching about this topic, and also I came to know what are all the factors played by the customer in an agile development. Uh, as an introduction, uh, we know that there are many software development methodologies. So in the old software development methodologies, the requirement gathering is done. The customer's interaction with the project was very minimal, and I can tell that there was no interaction until the product was released. So this led to the failures of the project, as a product developed did not meet the customer requirements. But it's not the case in agile development, because in agile development customer is an important part in the project. So the basically you can tell that agile methodology is an realistic approach to develop a product, and its functionality very rapidly. In agile development, customer is a very important part, as there are many roles played by him. uh, the role played by the customer in an agile development decides the success of the project. It has its own advantages and disadvantages, but we can get the working products getting quickly delivered in an agile development. And also you can say that agile requires very less amount of planning, as it depends more on the customer for the requirements. Hence you can say that the interaction of the customer becomes an important criteria for the success of the project, as the developers can travel through the hurdles only if the customer navigates the developers in the right path by continuously interacting and giving the feedback at the right time. Being said that, it's not that easy for a customer to fulfill his role always, since there are enormous factors which affect the customer to play his role in the project. So we'll discuss what are all the different roles played by the customer one by one. So the roles which I'm going to discuss with you are very important, as they help to increase the product's effectiveness, which in turn it benefits to improve the organization's value. The customer has complete knowledge about the business, hence the customer has the freedom to make decisions over the product, and also he has the freedom to make decisions over his requirements. So what is one of the role? Like, one of the role is writing user stories. You can see in the screenshot, in the image which I have shown here, the customer actually writes user stories for the development team. So these user stories are the user requirements, which has the information about what the user actually needs. Hence these customers write user stories because they are the domain experts, they know what they need. The user stories are usually written with tools. The screenshot which I have given here, it's called as a pivotal tracker. This is one of the project tracking tool where the customers can write user stories. There are also other tools such as Rally, Trello, which are very popular project tracking tools. Customers basically define the estimate of the user stories. What is this estimate? Estimate is nothing but how much time does this particular user story consumes, like how much time does it take to develop this particular user story. So also, once the user stories are generated, the team starts working on the user stories, and they try to see what actually it is specified by the customer, and they get back to the customer if they have any questions about the requirements. Customers in agile development also write acceptance tests. What are these acceptance tests? These tests are to check whether the product is behaving as described in the user stories. As we saw in the previous slide here, customer writes all these user stories, and these user stories are developed by the development team, and then later it is checked using the acceptance test by the customer whether it is behaving according to their user story. Typically, these acceptance tests are the requirement artifacts. Acceptance tests consists like basically testing the features, business rules, functional requirements, and the user requirements, etc. The next role played by the customer is in clarifying the ambiguity. So, what are these ambiguous requirements? Ambiguous requirements are nothing but it's not completely understood by the development team, and they need some more clarifications on these ambiguous requirements, since these ambiguous requirements are always a danger. So these ambiguous requirements basically leads to a delayed product delivery, unnecessary efforts, and worthless product. So the customer is the one who is a key to the success of the project. He needs to help the development team in understanding these requirements when the team is in dilemma. So customer helps in clarifying these ambiguous requirements by either rewriting the requirement, or he can have a face-to-face communication with the team, which basically resolves the most of the misunderstandings of the requirements. So the next role is the customer defines the business value of the project and also the user stories. The term value can be used in different contexts of the agile development. Since there are different kinds of business values, it's tough to arrive to a proper definition of business value. But there are many kinds of business values, like commercial value, market value, efficiency value, customer value, which is also called as end user value, and future value. So we'll be discussing about each of these values one by one. Commercial value is one of the business value where the customer evaluates the work which can be converted to profit. So I can give you an example where customer plans to add a functionality to a product to increase the profit, or he can completely change the architecture of the product, which reduces the operation costs. So these are the examples of the commercial value. The next is the market value. The customer is focused on targeting new customers, which increases the product's market value. Some of the examples are where the customer tries to add new features to the product which is not available with the competitors. So he is basically trying to trying to attract new customers by adding new features so that he can give a good competition in the market. The next is the efficiency value. When the customer targets to save time, efficiency value comes to the picture. There are certain tasks which can be performed by the development team on a regular basis, or which will be done on a regular basis. Hence the customer wants all these tasks which are done on the regular basis to be automated. So by automating it, he basically increases the efficiency, and thus it is called as efficiency value. The next is called as the end user value, or you can basically call it as a customer value. uh, the ultimate success of a product is the likelihood of an end user to continue using the product. So the end users value are taken to consideration very seriously. So the customer mainly focuses on this end users so that he can attract the end users and they can use the product forever. So it is called as end user value. The next is the future value. uh, these future values are completely directly proportional to all these business values. The customer decides whether he needs to invest on the product in the nearby future, which in turn increases the other business values like commercial value, market value, efficiency value, end user value. A good example is developing a new framework which can be used in the future for the development of the product. The next role played by the customer is defining the business rules. Business rules are defined in order to control the flow of business in a right manner. For example, let us consider a development team working on developing a website, a shopping website, maybe like similar to Amazon, eBay. The customer states that one of the rules should be shipping is free of cost if the total purchase is more than $200. So this is one of the business rule. Uh, so the customer has the right to define all these business rules. The next role played by the customer is updating the changes. So when you think about the old software development methodologies like waterfall model and similar to waterfall models, these software development models lack in their flexibility. So you cannot change the requirements once defined at the start of the project. So then came the agile methodology, which has these flexibilities. You can change the requirements whenever you want. So the customer is the business is customer has is doing business with the development team, so he has the right to change all these requirements. So this role is very important, as the development team must be ready to accept these changes, and these changes are updated to the development team only by the customer, so because he is the owner of the product. The next role played by the customer is prioritization. So high quality software is delivered to the customer based on the priorities which are being satisfied by the development team. So to build this high quality software, the team basically needs to concentrate on all these prioritized requirements, which are basically listed out by the customer. So the development team has a stack as shown in this diagram. So you can see that there are low priority and high priority requirements. So this is basically called as a product backlog. Now the team starts concentrating on these high priority requirements which are in the stack as shown in this diagram. The requirements in the product backlog are appropriately placed by the customer in the right location. So it all depends on the decision of the customer. So there is a very important role as when the right requirement should be delivered to the customer. So the next role played by the customer is planning. Planning is very important in any manner, whether it can be a software development or any other scenarios. So planning is one of the key to success. But in agile development, the planning is always directly proportional to the ability of the development team. So ability means like how many resources are there in the development team and how much work they can do, how much load you can put on a development team. So all these scenarios we need to consider before planning anything. So these abilities can be determined by the performance of the team in the last project. So we can check out all the list of team members who have performed in the last project, and we can basically calculate the ability of the development team. So planning, it's mainly giving a deadline to the development team, so all these tasks can be delivered as per the schedule. In agile development, the goal of the team is to release the working software as soon as possible. Hence the agile methodology came to picture, which became a huge success. These iterations or the development cycles are fixed with shorter number of days, hence they can deliver working products as soon as possible. The customer involves in the release plan. So he gives some suggestions to the development team, and he decides how the release plan should look, or when it should be released. Everything is decided by the customer and the development team. So basically the customer gives his valuable suggestions to the development team. If there are any backlogs, the customer prioritizes the user stories, and he collaborates with the development team on releasing these backlogs. The diagram shows how the release plan works, how the iteration planning does. So if you see, you can see all these backlogs. These are the iteration backlogs, release backlogs, product backlogs. So whenever a customer prioritizes the priority requirements will be handled first and will be delivered the next release. So the other requirements too, it always stays on the top of the stacks as defined by the customer. So next we'll see what are the advantages of having a customer collaborate with the development team. There are always ambiguity, so contacting the customer directly is a way to make the decisions quick as possible. So you can there is no delay in the deliverables. So whenever there is ambiguity in the requirements, the development team contacts the uh, product owner or so called the customers and checks what are all these requirements and what ambiguity they are facing in these requirements. This may be these conversations may be face to face, or it may be through the conference calls, etc. And all these things makes the team to work efficiently. So it doesn't make the team to wait till the customer gets back to him. So there is no unnecessary efforts which has been put in developing ambiguous requirements. And also it ensures that the product is delivered in a right schedule. And also you can basically come to a conclusion that high quality software is delivered when the requirements are satisfied according to the customer. So I feel that there will be no bugs in the product, or there will be no mismatch in the requirements as defined by the customer. So every product has few bugs that it's inevitable, but you can make sure that the bugs are reduced. So we can come to a conclusion. I also discussed with a couple of project managers working in multinational companies. So they feel that a customer is always important in an agile development, because it solely depends on the customer who directs them in the right path. So customer is very important in the software development, and the success of the project also depends on the customer. Thank you.